The river lay silent under the moon. Its slow current caught fragments of starlight and carried them downstream like drifting prayers. Siddhartha walked along its bank until the forest opened into a clearing dominated by a single Bodhi tree, immense and breathing. Its roots clutched the soil like fingers of time, and its leaves shimmered faintly, whispering secrets to the wind. He stopped there. Something within him recognized the place, not through memory but through knowing, as if every lifetime had led to this circle of earth. He gathered a small bundle of kusa grass from a farmer's field nearby and spread it carefully at the tree's base. The act felt ceremonial, not of worship, but of surrender. When he sat facing east, the air itself seemed to bow. He straightened his spine, folded his legs, and allowed his hands to rest lightly in his lap. The night pressed close, yet offered no threat. The scent of wet soil mingled with the faint sweetness of flowering jasmine carried from the riverbank. He had wandered through extremes, luxury that dulled the soul, asceticism that starved it. Every doctrine, every teacher had spoken of freedom, yet none had led beyond conflict. Now the effort to find an answer felt heavier than chains. He realized that truth could not be hunted like prey. It could only reveal itself to one who had stopped chasing. A calm acceptance spread through him. He touched the ground with his right hand, feeling the cool pulse of the earth beneath his fingertips. "Let this ground be witness," he whispered, "until ignorance ends. I will not rise." The words dissolved into air, but the promise remained, echoing in the rhythm of his breath. Thoughts came: his father's disappointment, Yasodhara's face in lamplight, the sound of his son's laughter carried by memory. Each image tried to pull him back, yet he met them as he might meet clouds passing across the moon noticed, honored, then allowed to drift away. The mind's noise began to thin. Stillness arrived gradually, not as absence but as presence, an awareness filling every pore, every particle of space. He could hear the heartbeat of insects beneath the grass, the far hum of the river, the soft creak of the Bodhi's trunk adjusting to night. Everything breathed together. His own inhalation joined that invisible tide until he no longer knew where he ended and the world began. He sensed that the path had never been about escape or conquest. It was about returning to what had always been awake beneath the layers of fear and desire. The moon climbed higher, and shadows deepened into clarity. Hours slipped away unnoticed. He felt neither hunger nor fatigue, only a widening silence inside him. At times, a tremor of doubt passed through. What if there is nothing beyond this? But the question itself dissolved when he looked directly at it. What remained was simple awareness of awareness, luminous and steady, like the moon reflected in water that does not ripple. He let go of striving, of hope, of every trace of becoming. There was only the unmoving watcher and the gentle turning of the world around him. By the middle of the night, The Bodhi tree seemed to lean closer, its leaves forming a canopy of listening. The earth beneath him felt vast, ancient, alive. He was no longer a seeker. He was a witness, one life among countless others, sitting quietly in the universe's breath. And, somewhere beyond thought, the first faint tremor of awakening stirred. Midnight gathered itself around the Bodhi tree, a dark tide rolling over the sleeping forest. The stars burned cold above, yet the air near Siddhartha shimmered faintly, alive with unseen motion. The stillness that had held the world so gently began to shift, as if something vast and restless stirred just beyond the edge of sight. A sudden wind rose, sweeping across the clearing. It rattled the leaves like 1,000 murmuring voices. Dust spiraled upward, wrapping around him in slow, deliberate circles. From that churning dark, whispers began thin, intimate, familiar. They spoke with his own memories, his own fears. "You have gone too far," one voice murmured. "There is still time to return. Your father waits. Your wife weeps. Your child will never know your touch." The words curled around his heart like smoke. For a breath, compassion trembled into sorrow. He saw Yasodhara's eyes glistening in lamplight, the way she had watched him sleep, perhaps knowing he would one day leave. He saw Rahula, his small hands clutching air where a father should have been. The ache was almost human enough to break him. Then he remembered these were threads of love woven with attachment. The pain was not in caring, it was in clinging. He breathed once, deeply, and let the images fade. From the forest's edge, the darkness thickened, and Mara took form, not as a horned demon, but as the shadow of every desire and fear that ever lived in him. His presence felt ancient and intimate, like the reflection of firelight in one's own eyes. Mara's voice rolled through the clearing, smooth as silk and sharp as command. "You seek to defeat me. I am the hunger of men, the thirst that builds cities and destroys them. I am the trembling before death. I am what keeps the wheel turning. You would stop it. You would make gods of men." Siddhartha opened his eyes. His face was calm, yet behind that calm burned a steady light. "You are not my enemy," he said softly. "You are my mind." Clothed in fear, Mara smiled, a curve of darkness against the light of the moon. "Then see what your mind desires most." At once the clearing changed. Gold rose from the earth. Glittering palaces appeared. Crowds bowed and chanted his name. Yasodhara stood before him in royal robes, her eyes bright with love and forgiveness. "Come back," she said, "and rule wisely. The world needs you." For a heartbeat, the illusion was perfect. He could almost smell the incense, hear the music of celebration. Then the scene wavered. The golden walls melted into mist, the laughter turned to echoes. He closed his eyes again. "You show me what is passing," he said, "but I seek what does not pass." Mara's patience frayed. The air thickened. Thunder crawled across the sky. He summoned storms of sound shrieks, drums, a rain of arrows that hissed through the air. They struck Siddhartha's aura of stillness and dissolved into lotus petals that drifted softly to the ground. Mara's daughters appeared next, radiant forms of beauty, desire, and longing. They danced with grace that could unmake reason. Their eyes held galaxies of promise. Each step whispered, "This is life, warm and sweet. Take it before it ends." But Siddhartha saw through them as through reflections on water. Beneath every form of pleasure lay the same hunger that never satisfied itself. He did not turn away in rejection, he simply did not reach. The dance lost its rhythm. The music faltered, and one by one, the illusions sighed into silence. Then came Mara's final weaponed out. It rose not as voice but as thought, sharp and intimate. Who are you to challenge suffering? What if the world needs its pain? What if awakening is only a dream of pride? The questions pierced him, not with fear but with recognition. He understood that doubt, too, was part of mind, its last defense before surrender. He breathed again, slow and deep, until even that whisper dissolved into space. When Mara spoke again, his tone was almost weary. "Who will witness your victory?" "Monk, the night will forget you." Siddhartha opened his eyes and touched the earth. "The earth is witness enough," he said. "It has carried the tears of all beings. It will remember what passes here." For a moment, lightning flashed, not of storm, but of clarity. The wind stilled. The forest exhaled. Mara's shadow wavered, grew thin, and dissolved back into the silence from which it came. The moonlight returned, pure and white, around the Bodhi tree. The world seemed to rest. Siddhartha's eyes closed again, but this time not to shut the world out, to merge with it. The battle had ended not with conquest, but with understanding. He sat unmoving, his breath one with the wind, his heartbeat echoing through the roots of the earth. Mara was gone, yet also forgiven, absorbed into the vast stillness that now surrounded all things. And above him, the Bodhi tree swayed gently, its leaves whispering not of fear, not of victory, but of peace. The night deepened again, vast and without edges. The forest returned to breath, slow and rhythmic, as though exhaling after a long tension. Siddhartha remained unmoving beneath the Bodhi tree. His spine was straight, but his body trembled faintly. Pain pulsed in his knees and back, a steady burning that came and went like waves. He felt it fully, yet without resistance. It belonged to no one. His eyes were closed, but inside him the world unfolded. He saw the first flicker of creation galaxies swirling like dust, light birthing itself from darkness, time spiraling outward. From that vastness came the small, fragile rhythm of life cells dividing, breathing, hungering, dying. Beings arose and perished, countless and continuous, bound to the same pulse of wanting. He saw it all, and it was not separate from him. He drifted deeper into that vision, not as spectator, but as witness, a point of still clarity amid infinite motion. He saw men and women reaching for pleasure, running from pain, trapped in circles of longing and loss. He saw kings who built empires only to crumble within them, beggars who prayed for relief yet clung to suffering as identity. He saw his own past lives reflected there, faces flickering across centuries, warrior, merchant, father, son, each believing the story would end differently. Yet always the wheel turned. The truth revealed itself slowly, layer by layer, like dawn unfolding from the edge of night. The cause of suffering was not pain itself, but the refusal to let life move through us. Desire was the hand that grasped. Ignorance was the blindness that mistook the hand for the self. Every craving power, love, immortality was the same flame taking new shapes. When the flame burned out, ashes remained, and from those ashes, longing rose again. A moment came when his mind tried to name what it saw, to hold it as knowledge, but the act of naming shattered the clarity. Words belong to illusion. Seeing required silence. He breathed and let even understanding dissolve. He sank further into a stillness so deep that the distinction between inside and outside vanished. There was only consciousness vast, clear, endless. Thoughts that had once seemed solid now drifted like smoke. Time itself loosened. He no longer felt the night's hours passing. Instead, he felt the slow turning of existence itself, the rise and fall of countless lives flowing through him like a single great river. Within that river, compassion began to glow, not an emotion, but a recognition. Every cry, every act of harm, every search for meaning came from the same root, the longing to escape the illusion of separation. He saw that love, hatred, fear, and hope were not enemies but siblings, born of ignorance. The more one clung to any of them, the more the cycle repeated. He whispered into the quiet of his own mind, "So long as ignorance endures, the wheel will spin. When seeing is clear, the turning ends." The words echoed, but there was no speaker and no listener, only sound dissolving into stillness. Far beyond the river, a jackal cried, its voice carrying through layers of fog. The sound was thin, lonely, and perfect. Somewhere nearby, a leaf fell, striking the ground like a soft note in an endless song. The forest was not sleeping, it was awake, breathing in harmony with him. The body's pain returned, sharper now, the muscles stiff and trembling, yet even that pain shimmered like illusion. It no longer belonged to him, it simply happened. A wave of sensation rising and falling within awareness. He saw that all things shared this fate, forms arising and vanishing in the same boundless field. He remembered the years of wandering, the teachers who promised release through denial, the priests who spoke of gods demanding sacrifice. Each had pointed outward, but truth, he realized, was inward and immediate, simple as breath, vast as sky. The night thickened once more, not darker, but deeper. It seemed that the whole universe leaned toward him, listening. He was no longer Siddhartha, son of kings, nor seeker of truth. He was the witness through which truth looked at itself. A subtle light began to stir behind his closed eyes, not of sun or fire, but of understanding dawning without source. The pain in his body softened, the boundaries of his breath melted into space. Everything that had ever lived seemed to breathe through him. When the first faint rustle of morning wind touched the leaves, he felt it not as change but as continuation, the same eternal rhythm moving from silence into sound. He sat through the long night until the night itself became transparent. The blackness of night had thinned into something fragile, translucent, like silk stretched before the first breath of light. Siddhartha sat unmoving beneath the Bodhi tree, his body rooted in stillness, his mind wide as the sky. The air was cool and damp, scented with earth and water lilies. Every sound, each sigh of wind, each ripple of the river seemed suspended in reverence. He had passed through fear, desire, and exhaustion. He had seen the wheel of existence turn endlessly and had touched the truth of suffering. Yet now, what filled him was not despair, but clarity. Every living thing moved according to a law as simple as breath. To resist was pain. To see clearly was peace. He inhaled slowly, feeling the rise of air through his chest. In that single breath, he felt the entire world inhale with him, trees drawing morning mist, insects stirring in the grass, a bird turning in its sleep, all of life, breathing as one body. He exhaled, and the forest seemed to release with him. There was no separation. A pale shimmer crossed the horizon. Not yet dawn, but its promise. The last star still burned above the river. Trembling in the quiet water, he opened his eyes. The world appeared as if washed clean. Each blade of grass shone with dew like a string of jewels. The branches of the Bodhi tree formed a crown against the fading night. The silence deepened until it was no longer the absence of sound, but the presence of everything. Within that silence, something in him shifted, a door opening inward. He saw the arising and passing of thoughts, of sensations, of lifetimes. They rose like bubbles and burst, leaving no trace. There was no I at the center, only the witnessing, clear and timeless. He touched the ground again. The earth pulsed faintly under his palm, cool and alive. This body will wither, he whispered, but the seeing will not die. The truth unfolded wordlessly, effortless as dawn unfolding from night. He saw the Four Noble Truths as plainly as one sees a mountain in morning light. Suffering exists. It arises from craving the thirst that clings to what changes. Freedom arises when craving ends. And the way beyond lies in balance, in walking the middle path between indulgence and denial. Each truth arrived not as doctrine, but as remembrance. It felt older than thought, older than birth. He had always known it, as the ocean knows its own waves. The revelation did not lift him above the world, it drew him deeper into it. For to see the truth was not to escape life, but to embrace it completely. The first bird called from somewhere in the trees, a single, pure note. It broke the silence without shattering it. Like light touching water, the sound widened into stillness again, now softer, golden at the edges. Siddhartha's face was calm, his eyes half closed. The line between his breath and the world's breath had vanished. He sat in a stillness so profound it felt alive. Around him, the air shimmered faintly, as if the very particles of space recognized what was happening. In that moment before dawn, he realized that awakening was not a reward or an achievement. It was the natural state, uncovered when all illusions fall away, the mind's clinging to identity, to time, to the endless game of becoming that was the cloud. The sky itself had never changed. He lifted his gaze. The horizon brightened, the star fading gently into the coming light. The river mirrored the transformation, dark blue softening into silver. It was as if the world itself exhaled after a long, patient holding. He smiled, not with joy, but with peace so vast it carried no name. He understood now that everything, birth, death, love, loss, even ignorance, was part of the same divine rhythm, the endless breath of existence discovering itself. Nothing was outside of truth. The first rays of sunlight touched the leaves above him. They trembled, as if waking from dream. Gold spilled across the ground, warm on his skin. In that soft light, the man who had left his palace, who had crossed forests and storms, no longer existed. There was only awareness, limitless, luminous, free. And as the sun lifted above the horizon, the world seemed to bow in silence. The first full light of morning unfurled across the forest, soft as breath. The river shimmered like molten glass, carrying reflections of clouds toward the open fields. Dew clung to the grass, Yules dissolving in warmth. Beneath the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha remained unmoving. His posture was the same, yet everything around him had changed. The air seemed lighter, as if the world had been quietly reborn during the hours of dawn. He felt the sunlight touch his skin, warm and living. Every sensation was vivid yet weightless. The whisper of wind, the call of unseen birds, the rhythm of his own heart echoing within the pulse of the earth. Awareness no longer belonged to him. It was simply there, vast, radiant, steady as the horizon. He looked down at his hands resting in his lap. They were the same hands that once held weapons. Gold. The small fingers of a child, yet now they felt transparent, vessels of something beyond form. In that quiet realization, compassion bloomed not as emotion, but as an unbroken truth. He understood that the suffering of the world was not separate from him. It was the same river flowing through every heart. The world suffers not because it is cruel, he murmured, but because it forgets. He lifted his gaze. The forest stirred gently. Sunlight filtered through the Bodhi leaves, each trembling shard a reflection of light itself. He saw within that shimmer the entire dance of existence, joy, sorrow, creation, decay, all arising and passing in perfect rhythm. To the unseeing, it appeared chaotic. To the awakened, it was harmony. Nothing needed to be fixed, only understood. A heron glided across the river, white wings catching the sun. He followed its flight until it vanished into the brightness, and for a moment he felt the same movement within himself, effortless, unbound. Freedom was not escape, it was intimacy with everything. He remembered the years of searching, the extremes of indulgence and starvation. How small those struggles seemed now, yet how necessary they had been. Each error had been a teacher, every failure a gate. The path had not led him to truth. It had revealed that truth had always been walking with him. He touched the ground once more. The gesture, simple, human. This earth has witnessed my ignorance, he said softly. Now may it witness my understanding. From this moment, let compassion flow through me as water through stone. The wind answered by moving through the branches. The leaves whispered back a sound like distant laughter. He closed his eyes again, not to retreat from the world, but to see it more clearly. Within the quiet space behind his eyelids, the universe unfolded, not as vision, but as knowing. He saw beings trapped in sorrow, reaching blindly toward joy. He saw kings clutching crowns that would crumble, lovers swearing forever while time gently erased their words. And yet, beneath all of it, He saw goodness, the longing to be free, the spark of awareness buried under fear. That spark, he knew, was Buddha nature itself, waiting in all things. Compassion welled in him like light rising from the earth. It was no longer his compassion. It belonged to everything that lived. He felt the wish move through him, as naturally as breath. May all beings awaken. May they find the stillness that asks for nothing, fears nothing, holds nothing. He breathed once more. The sound of the river deepened, as though carrying his words into the heart of the world. The Bodhi tree shimmered again. Sunlight spilled across its trunk, casting shadows that looked like flowing water. Every leaf became a small mirror, catching and releasing the light. He saw that enlightenment was not an end, but a beginning, a seed falling into fertile soil. The path of one would become the path of many. When he finally opened his eyes, they were calm, clear, without center. There was no prince, no seeker, no saint, only seeing itself. He rose slowly, each motion a continuation of stillness. The earth beneath his feet felt sacred because it was ordinary. The birds sang louder. The morning breeze carried scent of rain. Life had not changed, only the one who looked. He turned toward the river. The current sparkled in sunlight, endless and patient. He smiled, understanding at last. The river does not strive to reach the sea. It is already the sea, moving in another form. So too was he. He pressed his palms together in gratitude, not toward heaven, but toward the living world, the ground, the wind, the trembling leaves. May this peace reach all hearts, he said, and as he stepped away from the Bodhi tree, the world itself seemed to breathe with him. Every sound, every motion, every silence became part of one vast, eternal awakening.